Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be taking a journey through time and spirituality, exploring the Book of the Cave of Treasures.
Oh, very cool.
It's a fascinating Syriac text, and this deep dive is based on research by Andrei Mubarak.
Okay.
Andrei is an Aramaic-speaking Christian from Jerusalem.
Interesting.
He's passionate about teaching the Aramaic roots of the Christian faith. Be sure to check out his website, www.twinstours.com,
Sounds like a great resource.
for more insights into his work.
Yeah.
So, I have to admit,
Yeah.
when I first heard about this Cave of Treasures, the idea of it just filled with ancient secrets and spiritual wisdom,
Right.
it immediately captured my imagination.
I can see why.
But where do we even begin to unpack such a complex and intriguing text?
Well, imagine like a secret history of salvation passed down through generations told from the perspective of Syriac Christians.
Okay.
That's essentially what the Book of the Cave of Treasures offers us.
Okay, so not your typical Sunday school lesson.
Not quite.
So before we go any further, can you give us some context?
Sure.
What exactly is Syriac Christianity?
Yeah, so Syriac Christianity.
Now, why is this text so significant?
It's a vital branch of early Christianity that flourished in the Eastern Roman Empire and Persia.
Wow.
What's fascinating is they used Syriac, a dialect of Aramaic, the language Jesus himself spoke.
That's incredible.
They preserved a wealth of early Christian writings
Wow.
and had a distinct theological perspective.
Okay.
This book gives us a glimpse into their worldview and understanding of the biblical narrative.
Wow, to be able to read a text that echoes the language of Jesus' time, that's incredible.
It's pretty amazing.
But this Cave of Treasures, is it a literal cave, or is there a deeper meaning behind it?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
While it's likely a metaphor representing a hidden storehouse of spiritual wisdom,
Okay.
within the narrative itself, it's described as a real place.
Interesting.
The book tells us that Adam and Eve sought refuge in this cave after being expelled from the Garden of Eden.
So it's like a symbolic space with a tangible presence in the story.
Exactly.
A bit like a spiritual man cave for Adam and Eve.
You could say that.
And the treasures inside aren't gold or jewels, right?
Right, they're relics of salvation history.
Okay.
Things like the rod of Moses, the garments of Adam and Eve, and even Adam's tears after his expulsion from paradise.
Wait, Adam's tears are considered a treasure?
Yeah.
That's not something you hear every day.
It really highlights the Syriac emphasis on repentance and the profound emotional weight they placed on Adam's sin.
Okay.
Those tears represent his sorrow, his longing for God's forgiveness, making them precious in the eyes of the author. It speaks volumes about their theological perspective.
That's a really unique perspective. Now, I know this text is considered apocryphal. Could you explain what that means in this context?
Yeah.
And how it might impact our understanding of the book?
You're right. It is considered apocryphal, meaning it's not part of the official biblical canon accepted by most churches.
Okay.
The Book of the Cave of Treasures is attributed to Ephraim the Syrian,
Okay.
a renowned 4th century theologian. Okay.
However, most scholars believe it was actually written later, perhaps in the 5th century.
So while it's inspired by the Bible, it's not considered part of the official scriptural texts. Does that mean it's less valuable or insightful?
Not at all. Think of it as a unique lens through which to view the biblical narrative.
Okay.
While it draws heavily on those familiar stories,
Yeah.
it also incorporates Jewish and Mesopotamian traditions,
Interesting.
weaving a tapestry of history, legend, and theology that offers a fresh perspective.
That's fascinating. What would you say are some of the key themes that run through this book? What message is it trying to convey?
One of the most prominent themes is the concept of paradise and exile.
Okay.
The expulsion of Adam and Eve from Eden becomes a powerful metaphor for the human condition, our separation from God, and our yearning for restoration.
That's a theme that resonates across cultures and religions, isn't it?
Yeah.
The longing for a lost paradise.
Absolutely. Another crucial theme is what's known as Christocentric typology.
This means that Old Testament figures and events are seen as prefiguring Christ's life, death, and resurrection.
Interesting.
For example, Adam is portrayed as a type of Christ,
Okay.
both being the firstborn of creation and playing pivotal roles in humanity's relationship with God.
So it's like drawing a line through history, connecting the dots between the Old Testament and the New Testament through symbolism and foreshadowing.
Precisely. This typological approach emphasizes that Christ's arrival was the fulfillment of a divine plan set in motion from the very beginning of creation.
It's intriguing how the Cave of Treasures weaves together these biblical narratives with other cultural influences. You mentioned Jewish and Mesopotamian traditions earlier. How does the context of the Roman Empire and Persia, where Syriac Christianity thrived, influence the text?
That's a great question. You see, the text can be viewed as a subtle form of cultural resistance.
Okay.
It presents a distinctly Syriac understanding of history and theology,
Okay.
offering an alternative to the dominant Greco-Roman and Zoroastrian ideologies of the time.
So it's not just a religious text, it's a reflection of the cultural and political landscape of its time.
Exactly.
It reveals how Syriac Christians navigated their identity within a complex, sometimes hostile environment.
Right.
By blending biblical narratives with their own cultural heritage, they asserted their unique worldview. It's
Exactly.
like they were saying, we have our own story to tell our own understanding of God and the world, and it's just as valid.
Precisely. And this story, this understanding is preserved in the Cave of Treasures, a testament to the resilience and creativity of Syriac Christianity.
Okay, so we've touched upon the historical context,
Mm-hmm.
the symbolic nature of the cave, and some of the key themes.
Yeah.
But how does the story itself unfold? What's the narrative structure of the book?
The narrative follows a fairly straightforward chronological order.
Okay.
It begins with the creation of Adam and Eve,
Right.
emphasizing their place in cosmic history.
Okay.
Then we have the expulsion from Eden
Yep.
and the establishment of the Cave of Treasures as a place of refuge.
So it starts at the very beginning with the foundational story of humanity,
Yeah.
much like the Bible itself.
Yes. And from there, it moves through a series of genealogical accounts, tracing the lineage from Adam all the way to Jesus.
Okay.
It's like a family tree of salvation history,
Oh, yeah.
connecting each generation to the next, leading up to the central figure of Christianity.
But it's not just a dry list of names and dates, right?
Right.
It brings in those extra biblical traditions and stories we were talking about earlier, adding depth and nuance to the familiar biblical narrative.
Absolutely. The Book of the Cave of Treasures draws upon sources like the Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and other apocryphal texts,
Interesting.
weaving them into a rich tapestry of history, legend, and theological interpretation.
Okay.
It's truly a unique blend of sources.
So it's like a hidden library of stories, offering a different perspective on familiar figures and events. And all of this ultimately leads to the arrival of Jesus, the central figure of the Christian faith.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The narrative builds toward the incarnation, presenting it as the culmination of salvation history. It's the moment when God enters human history, fulfilling the promises made to Adam and Eve and offering a path to redemption for all humanity.
So in a way, the Cave of Treasures itself is pointing us toward this ultimate treasure,
Yeah,
the gift of salvation through Christ.
that's a beautiful way to put it. It's a reminder that this ancient text, with all its complexities and cultural nuances, ultimately carries a message of hope.
Okay.
A message of God's love for humanity and the promise of a restored relationship with him.
And this is just the beginning of our deep dive. We've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating text. Don't forget, this deep dive is based on the work of Andre Mubarak,
Right.
an Aramaic-speaking Christian from Jerusalem. Andre's passion is to share the Aramaic roots of the Christian faith, and you can find more of his research on his website, www.twinstours.com.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a quick break to delve even deeper into the Cave of Treasures and uncover more of its hidden gems.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Sounds good. Welcome back to the deep dive. Before we go deeper into the Cave of Treasures,
Yeah.
I thought we could talk about the fact that it was originally written in classical Syriac.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's fascinating to think that this language,
Yeah.
a dialect of Middle Aramaic, was the language of Jesus himself.
It really sets this text apart, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Reading it in Syriac must feel like stepping back in time,
Absolutely.
like getting closer to the world
Yeah.
where those early Christian communities lived and breathed.
Syriac is a beautiful and expressive language in its own right, with a rich literary tradition, and its close relationship to Hebrew adds another layer of depth, especially for those familiar with biblical texts.
You mentioned those similarities before.
Yeah.
Can you give us like a specific example of how the connection between Syriac and Hebrew shines through in the Cave of Treasures?
One striking example is the use of the word kwama,
Okay.
which means resurrection,
Okay.
in both Syriac and Hebrew. The shared root underscores the continuity between the Old and New Testaments,
Okay.
emphasizing resurrection as a central concept in both faiths. It's a subtle but powerful linguistic link that deepens our understanding of the text's theological message.
That's a great example. It's amazing how these linguistic nuances can open up new layers of meaning.
Right.
and connect us to the historical context of the text.
Hmm.
But I imagine translating a text like this with its unique linguistic features and cultural references
Yeah.
must present some serious challenges.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balancing act. Translators have to capture the essence of the original Syriac while making it accessible to a modern audience.
Yeah.
One of the biggest hurdles is finding English equivalents for Syriac idioms and expressions that don't translate directly.
It's almost like trying to translate a joke.
Right.
Sometimes the humor gets lost in translation if you're not familiar with the cultural context.
Exactly. You need to be sensitive to those subtle nuances of meaning and find creative ways to convey them without losing the flavor of the original text.
It makes you appreciate the work of those dedicated scholars who make these ancient texts accessible to us.
Definitely.
Okay, speaking of the Cave of Treasures itself,
Yeah.
how does the story actually unfold? We know it covers a vast historical period,
It does.
but is there a central thread or narrative
Yeah.
that drives the story forward?
One of the most compelling aspects of the Cave of Treasures is its focus on the lineage of Adam, tracing his descendants all the way to Jesus.
Oh, wow.
It's presented as a genealogical journey, a kind of spiritual family tree
Okay.
that highlights the continuity of God's plan for salvation across generations.
That's an interesting way to frame it. It makes me think of those elaborate family trees you sometimes see with all the branches and connections leading back to a common ancestor.
Right.
But in this case, it's a spiritual lineage leading to the ultimate figure in Christianity.
Precisely. The Cave of Treasures weaves this lineage into a larger narrative that encompasses key biblical events, from creation to the flood to the Exodus, all viewed through the lens of this continuous line,
Okay.
leading towards the coming of Christ.
They're saying that God's plan was always in motion, unfolding throughout history, with each generation playing a role in the grand scheme of salvation.
Exactly.
Wow,
And
yeah.
within this grand narrative, the Cave of Treasures itself becomes a recurring symbol. It represents a sacred repository of knowledge, a place where relics and memories of God's interaction with humanity are preserved.
Wow.
It's almost like a physical manifestation of that spiritual lineage.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
A cave holding not just physical treasures,
Right.
but the very essence of salvation history.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder, though, why a cave? Why choose that particular setting as a symbol?
That's an excellent question. Caves hold a special significance in many cultures and religions.
Okay.
They often represent hidden knowledge mystery or a place of refuge. Think of the cave where the prophet Elijah encountered God, or a cave where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. In the Cave of Treasures, the cave serves as a symbolic space where the secrets of salvation are kept safe, waiting to be revealed.
It makes you want to grab a flashlight and go exploring. But on a more serious note,
Yeah.
what would you say is the overall message or purpose of the Cave of Treasures? What did the author hope to convey to their readers?
I believe the author's primary aim was to affirm the continuity and unity of God's plan for salvation from creation to the coming of Christ.
Okay.
The text emphasizes that Christ's incarnation was not a sudden or isolated event,
Right.
but rather the culmination of a long and divinely orchestrated process,
Right.
the process that unfolds throughout history and culminates in the person of Jesus.
So it's a story about God's unwavering faithfulness to humanity, his commitment to fulfilling his promises, even amidst human failures and setbacks.
Exactly. The Cave of Treasures is ultimately a message of hope, a testament to the enduring power of God's love and his plan to redeem humanity.
And it's a message that continues to resonate even today, doesn't it? The idea that there's a larger purpose to our lives, that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's great.
And the fact that this message is conveyed through a text that's rooted in the language and culture of Jesus' time makes it all the more powerful and compelling.
It's like we're hearing echoes of that ancient world connecting with a faith tradition that's both familiar and strangely new.
Exactly. That's really cool.
And before we move on, I want to remind everyone that this deep dive into the Cave of Treasures is based on the research of Andrei Mubarak,
Right.
an Aramaic-speaking Christian from Jerusalem.
Of course.
You can learn more about his work on his website, www.twinstores.com.
Absolutely.
He's a fantastic resource for anyone interested in the Aramaic roots of Christianity.
Andrei's passion for this subject is truly inspiring. We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much more to explore. We'll be back after a quick break to delve deeper into the cultural and theological significance of the Cave of Treasures.
Sounds good.
And its relevance for us today. Stay tuned. Okay. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this fascinating world of the Book of the Cave of Treasures.
Yeah.
And I think it's time we shift our focus to what this ancient text might have to say to us today in the 21st century.
Yeah, it's intriguing to think that a text written centuries ago could still hold relevance for modern readers.
Yeah.
What do you think draws people to the Cave of Treasures in our current day and age?
Well, I think one of the biggest draws is the text's emphasis on spiritual lineage and genealogical connection. In a world that often feels fragmented and disconnected, there's a deep human longing to understand our place in the grand scheme of things, to feel connected to something larger than ourselves.
That's true.
And the Cave of Treasures offers that sense of connection through its exploration of Adam's lineage, tracing the thread of humanity back to its origins and forward to its ultimate redemption in Christ.
It's almost like a spiritual genealogy that reminds us we're not isolated individuals, but part of a larger story.
Right.
A story that stretches back to the dawn of creation.
Precisely. And this story speaks to a deep-seated human need for meaning and purpose.
Right.
The Cave of Treasures suggests that our lives are not random or accidental, but rather part of a grand, divinely orchestrated plan. And this idea can be incredibly comforting, especially in times of uncertainty or doubt.
It's a reminder that even amidst the chaos of the world, there's an underlying order.
Yeah.
A sense of purpose that gives our lives meaning.
Exactly. And, for modern readers who may be disillusioned with traditional religious institutions or doctrines, the Cave of Treasures offers a fresh perspective on Christianity. It presents a faith that's deeply rooted in history and tradition, yet also open to cultural influences and diverse interpretations.
It's like a reminder that Christianity is a global faith with a rich and varied history. A history that extends far beyond the confines of Western culture and thought.
Absolutely. And the Cave of Treasures, with its blend of biblical narratives, apocryphal traditions, and Jewish and Mesopotamian influences, embodies that diversity and richness. It challenges us to expand our understanding of what it means to be Christian and to appreciate the multifaceted nature of the faith.
It also highlights the interconnectedness of different faith traditions, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The Cave of Treasures shows how Syriac Christianity was shaped by its interactions with Judaism, Mesopotamian religions, and even Persian influences.
That's a crucial point. In a world that's often divided along religious lines, the Cave of Treasures serves as a reminder of the common threads that run through different faiths. It encourages us to engage in respectful dialogue, to seek understanding rather than division, and to recognize the shared values that unite us as human beings.
It's a message that's incredibly relevant in our current global landscape, where interfaith dialogue and understanding are more important than ever.
Absolutely. And beyond its historical and cultural significance, the Cave of Treasures also speaks to our personal spiritual journeys. It invites us to contemplate the big questions of life, the meaning of suffering, the nature of good and evil, the search for purpose and redemption.
It's a text that encourages introspection and self-reflection, prompting us to examine our own beliefs and values.
Exactly. And as we delve into the Cave of Treasures, we're not just exploring an ancient text. We're embarking on a journey of self-discovery. A journey that can lead to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
It's a reminder that the search for spiritual meaning is an ongoing process, a lifelong adventure filled with unexpected twists and turns.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up our deep dive into the Cave of Treasures, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of wonder and curiosity. This ancient text offers a glimpse into a world that's both familiar and strange, a world where faith and tradition were intertwined, and where the search for spiritual meaning was at the heart of human experience.
And a huge thank you to Andrei Mubarak.
Absolutely.
The Aramaic-speaking Christian from Jerusalem, whose research made this deep dive possible.
Yes.
Don't forget to visit his website, www.twinstours.com.
That's right.
To learn more about his work and the fascinating world of Syriac Christianity.
It's been a pleasure exploring this remarkable text with you today. And to our listeners, I encourage you to seek out the Cave of Treasures for yourselves. It's a journey that will challenge your assumptions, broaden your perspectives, and perhaps even lead you to discover hidden treasures within your own heart.
This deep dive is just the beginning. Remember that teacher and tour guide, Andrei Mubarak from Jerusalem, the one who speaks Aramaic and teaches about the Aramaic roots of the Christian faith? Well, this dive was based on his research, so big thanks to Andrei. You can check out his work at www.twinstours.com. Until next time, keep diving deep.